We'll do the introductions. I'm just going to say their names and they can do their own introductions because they're here. On my left here is Andrew McCall. He's going to introduce himself. And just down there is Nick do you know what? I got it right over there. Talevsky. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a
Talevsky. There we go. Where's it from?
It's Macedonian.
There you go. So, gentlemen, would you like to just give us a little potted history of who you are and what you do and your favourite colour as well?
Cheers. So I'm Andrew McCall. I work for Encore Event Technologies. I've worked in the event industry for a long, long time. When I was at university, I played in bands, and when I finished the degree, all the rest of my classmates went on mostly to become chartered accountants, and so I decided that because I worked in bands and then I did theatre and I did broadcast during my university time, it's a great industry to be in, and so I'd stayed in it for all that time. Encore is a global event services company. It's about $3 billion a year. Encore in Australia, some of you would know it as Staging Connections, was where it came from. Encore bought Staging Connections a few years ago, and it's currently the second biggest event services company in the world. We have about 1,000 people in Australia, and I run the procurement and the technology side of the business. So I have a team of people and an extended team where we look at what stuff's coming over the event horizon and what new technologies are going to be relevant and what is going to get great traction in the business. And then we go out and deal with people and negotiate to buy it. We would have probably, in terms of technology, we'd have the best part of $100 million worth of kit in Australia. So it's not a small outfit, and we are really interested in this area we're going to talk about today, engagement. It's a big part of what we do. We're looking for what stuff helps our clients do that.
Well, it's good to meet you. My name's Nick. I have a difficult surname. I work for Australia Post, so my favourite colour's red. I'm a technology project manager. I ran the Australia Post executive conferences for 2 years, and we used the technology app, and that was basically my role. To give it to the tech guy. That was me. I also played music, so if you play drums, then we can...
I played guitar, actually.
Oh, there you go.
I was in a band as well.
We've got a band then.
What did you play?
I could do the singing.
Right.
I'll play guitar and keys.
Right.
Oh, sweet. We're good.
If anyone's a drummer out there, maybe we could put something on for tomorrow. Okay, first question. So audience engagement, obviously a critical aspect of any event. How do you define it, and why is it so important?
I think it's, when you look at, if I just rewind a little bit from that, if you think about, a lot of events have a corporate kind of agenda behind them, and so if you're running a corporate event, the message that you're trying to get out there is a key part of what you're trying to do, and it's like the sales business. If you're not talking to the people who are making the sales decision, you're not likely to succeed in the whole sales process. That's kind of sales 101. And so if you think about event design and engagement, if you have a whole lot of people who sit in the audience and are passive, and you don't know what you got out of them, how well the message resonated with them, you didn't get your message across, or at least the chances that you got your message across are very poor. And so engagement is an opportunity to get something back from your opportunity, from the clients, and then create further opportunities for you. If you think about that kind of sales process that marketing departments go through in terms of their client contacts, they harvest the lead, and then they know more and more about them, and then hopefully they end up being customers. That's the marketing journey, and a lot of event people, professionals from the corporate side at least, work for a marketing department. And so engagement is that key part of an event, and let's face it, events are just one of the choices that marketing people have about how they go to market, how they get their message out. They can do EDM, they can do advertising, they can do online. There's a whole lot of exhibitions, they can do a whole lot of things. In the event, the engagement is the opportunity to hear back from the client. And so that's why it's so important, is because if you fail to do that, you've missed the opportunity to learn more about how well the message is going over, who your client is, what they want, what their needs are. And so in terms of the event design, the message that you've got to go, that you're trying to get out there with, the engagement is critical. And so I think that's really how I see that.
Okay, Nick?
Yeah, I think just to distill it down even further is using technology to make a meaningful connection. That's what engagement is to me, a meaningful connection. And whether it's a sale or just getting information across, you come to these, you're bombarded with information. What do you take away? A meaningful connection or a customer or some information that you have. These things are expensive to run. People's time is expensive. We're often questioned that in technology. I'm sure you get that. Meaningful connection is worth it. So that's, for me, engagement.
So we all want everyone to walk out of our events feeling engaged and feeling excited that they've had a great time, so on and so forth. And the previous speaker does that by fueling them up with enormous amounts of sugar.
Or gin.
That works.
Or gin, sugar or gin. Sugar and gin. Interesting. We're going to try and do it through technology. So what technology would you guys use to be creating that engagement? I'm also going to just split that question into two, because certainly from my side of things, from my marketing background, there's two very distinct markets. There's a B2B market and a B2C market, and the way that you treat those is very different. But what would you guys use from a technology point to cater for those two markets? We'll start with Nick on that one.
Well, I'm all for the apps. I'm of the app generation. So you get it on your phone. Everyone's got one in the room or several devices. You can interact. Cheap, it's fast. You can get a message across quickly. That's what I'd say. Get to your app technology, because the pressure's on for the budgets. You know, they were saying before, don't cut on the food budget. Don't cut on this. It's meaningful. I would say use apps, use your socials, get on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. That stuff's cheap. Lets you get a message across quickly to a large volume of people. That'd be a start.
Okay, Andrew?
I think the thing I would say to that is that a lot of people confuse wow, like a wow factor, with engagement. And they're not the same. Like, you can have a spectacular looking event and you didn't really get a lot of engagement out of it. You think about if you go to a concert, that could be spectacular, like from a sound and lighting perspective, but was there a whole lot of engagement? Not usually. And so I think it's what Nick said. You're looking for things that create an authentic engagement opportunity. And so the whole bring your own device thing, that's a great cost effective way of doing that. So event apps are terrific. There's a whole range of ideas around that that are based on a bring your own device. The polling thing that's built into the app that's here is kind of, that creates a genuine opportunity for engagement, either by scripted questions. I mean, there used to be polling devices that were like a cabled device where like a voting system, for those of you who've been around long to remember those. And they had to be really carefully scripted, and they were kind of like a guided discovery thing, but they were powerful because the audience was kind of actively part of the discussion. I mean, I think there's a thing called second screen where the content for the show is streamed onto a device that you have in your hand. And so in effect, you see the slides. You see the slides for the show comes onto a handheld device, and you can flick back and have a look at stuff, and there's networking built into it, and it's great for boardroom stuff or a sales presentation, a really important sales presentation. It also gives metrics back to the people who are running it, because it tells you how long people looked at each slide, or what slides did they go back and look at. So that's a kind of a bring your own device thing, because people, same as people log on to the conference app, they log on to those sorts of devices. I think there's a range of other technologies, some that have been around for a while. Like web streaming is a great one, where you can extend the life of the event by caching the content and make it available to people afterwards, so that the event goes on after the doors are finished and everyone's gone home and the AV crew's packed up. The event's still available to people, and because it's online, there's opportunities to engage with them while they're watching the web stream. Web streams these days can be built very interactively. You can build polling into a streaming experience, so there's an opportunity for people to ask questions or to respond to scripted questions with a streaming environment. And so I think there's a range of different options. I think what I see about that, you asked about, is there a difference between B2B and B2C? I think that's really important, that the event design reflects who the audience is. You know, I think, say if you had a game, like a computer gaming conference for 40,000 computer nerds, your whole design of the event is going to be completely different to an IT services, or, you know, if you're selling CRM software, or indeed if you're running a social event. So the technology choice is driven by the event design, and the event design is driven by who the audience is.
Is there anyone else here in events that's using that or has used apps really successfully in their events? Okay. Do they? I'll pick on somebody completely random at the front there. What event is it that you're involved with?
We run a number of
Okay.
TBOE, so
Okay.
mainly B2B events.
Do you find the engagement level quite high?
Yes, but I think it's more to get the information out there. It's the one-stop shop that everyone's got their phones on there, so I think that's what makes it really successful.
Right. Who here has referred to the app, today's app, the app for this event? Who's
Oh no, I
been
did
on
it as
that?
soon as I got
Okay.
here. Opened it up.
Okay.
I
Interesting.
think before you move on, I think
Yeah.
interaction, people want to interact with your app. They want to participate in polls. They want to give you their feedback. They want to like, comment, hashtag. You want to collect data, and that's going to feed into your analytics and reporting as to the level of engagement. So you can tell people that you did spend their money on this event. We had 98% attendance. 95% of people logged into the app. Everybody attended every booth. They liked it. We got 50 likes on this booth. There's a lot of really good, valuable data that you can collect using these tools. They're pretty powerful, and they're really good for justifying having the technology at the event as well, which I know is difficult.
I mean, you're talking about engagement as a measure of ROI, and I think that's one of the things that people who are budgeting events or budgeting event programs are always going to struggle with. Like, what was the return on our investment here? We spent this. It's easy to know what you spend on the event, but what did we get back from it? And so, the tools we're talking about, engagement tools, are really one of the strongest ways of closing the loop on stuff. I mean, very sophisticated companies can go, from a qualified lead, I get this much revenue. Okay, so I need this many qualified leads. If I invite this many people to the event, then I'll get that many qualified leads. My drop-off is this many percent. I need to invite this many people to get that drop-off, and I need to get this many invitations out there to get that many acceptances. That closed loop approach, that only works if you've got some tool of engagement, because otherwise you don't find out that data.
One of the other rabbit holes that we went off on at lunchtime whilst we met each other for the first time, was all the other technologies that are available out there. And you guys must be bombarded with them. I guess people are trying to sell them to you and all the time. And we were kind of making a list of them. So I'm interested to see if any of you kind of, get sold these, or people are trying to sell them to you. And I'm also interested from your perspective about where you see these things fitting in to events. And you guys have both said that it's certain technology for certain events, but there must be some things out there that you look at now and you go, yeah, do you know what? That's just not going to work for any event.
Well, I think back to 3D, like 3D goggles, kind of 3D vision systems. That was like about 3 or 4 years ago. That was like the next big thing.
We were all going to buy 3D TVs, weren't we?
Yeah.
Did anyone here buy a 3D
Everyone's
TV?
got one, but no one uses it. I mean, I think there's a whole lot of cool technology, and I go back to what I said earlier. Like, just that wow is not the same as engagement. Like, to come up with a show that's amazing visually doesn't. We're not talking about engagement at that point. We're just talking about wow. Yeah, that was great. It looked fantastic. Did you sign up? No, I didn't. And so, and there's a lot of tools that fit that description. I think about the current thing with VR. Like virtual reality is a thing that's coming down the track, and people will tell you that that's a fantastic piece or augmented reality. That's kind of a different thing, but that people are struggling to fit them into an event space. There's a tendency for people to want to use the latest thing, and be out there going, I'm using this because it's new and it's cool and nobody else has done it. But I don't think that necessarily creates engagement unless it fits your event design and the messaging that you've got going with it. Otherwise, don't spend the money. Like, think about what you're trying to do with the event, what the goals are for the end client, and then pick the technology that works for it. We were talking before about beacon technology, and for those of you who have not seen it, it's a kind of a wireless technology that that polls your handheld device that you're carrying around with you, and it knows where you are at all times. And so, and again, people were saying, how long ago? 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
People were saying this is going to be the next thing in venues and exhibitions. It's going to know where you are. And there's a version of that Cisco are running now for shopping centres, where as you walk into the shopping centre, it polls your phone. It doesn't record your name, it records the MAC address of the device, and it knows what shops you went to. And then next time you go there, it remembers the MAC address because it keeps it on a database, and it knows that you go to the sports shop all the time. So it's going to push sell on through the Wi-Fi ads for specials for sporting equipment, stuff like that. And so you can easily imagine there's a lot of potential for an event, for a trade show particularly, but it just never took off.
Does anyone else use Beacon's event in any of their events there?
Yeah.
What event was that for?
Yeah, so we do Adapt. We do TBOE Edge and multiple Edge events. I've got a pretty loud voice. And we use it. Everything's run off our app for all our attendees, and there's multiple events going on within our agenda, so we can keep track of where they are. And it actually works really well for us because we actually do need to know because they're supposed to be in meetings or they're supposed to be in certain places.
Right.
So it does work, especially for our data post-event, because we have to report that information back to the clients on who attended their sessions and things. But there's a lot of work that goes into it.
It's interesting that when beacons, as Andrew said, 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, were going to be the next big thing. I saw maps of San Francisco 4 years ago where they had a map of where all the live beacons were, and it was just awash with beacons outside all these stores and up and down every street, but yet they haven't, we asked the room here, and there's one response or there's 2 or 3 responses. Is there anything that you see now, and you mentioned virtual reality and augmented reality, that are the buzzwords that everybody's talking about now that you think either, yes, that is a viable technology over the next few years, or is something that you would caution everybody here about, blowing their budget on or spending their budget on?
Well, I think it comes back to there's some great new technologies that are on the way down. There's currently vision systems. The best resolution you probably see is 4K. The industry that's making display devices wants to sell you 8K stuff, and there's not a great advantage in that one way or the other, but it is a thing. People are going to be telling you it's the next best thing that you need to be into. And there's a bunch of new audio imaging technology that's on the way through, where more for the concert market than for the corporate market. But I don't think those things create engagement. And I think I'll come back to that you're looking for the people who are smart about what technology they're going to suggest to you that fits the event design that you've got working. I think Beacons is a smart technology, but I think it's perhaps a bit before its time. And I think the apps is probably more likely a better tool. Social and the apps are much stronger tools currently to create engagement.
I think just
I was going to say,
before
let me ask the question with a question.
Yeah.
We were saying in the break as well, if you could attend a conference using VR goggles from the comfort of your own home and all the stores were digital and you could walk around and purchase things and do stuff, would you go? Would you call that engagement? And I think we all agreed that we wouldn't. So I think that's a premium example of technology not creating a benefit.
But what I'd say about that is there's a piece of technology that needs the right place. Virtual reality is great technology. Who's put on a set of VR goggles and had a look and see what you get? So here's the thing: in an event, in an experience like this, it's really hard to think of how that's going to work for you. But to explain to a client what the environment is going to be like, nothing will do it better. You can take the client to the event with VR technology, and you can show them what it's like in the room, and you can show them different views of the room. You can show them different parts of the space that you're designing, and it takes away the uncertainty factor of what the event is going to be like, and it makes the conversation the visualization by the client much easier. So there's kind of the edge of the event. It's selling the event, but it's a great technology for that.
And I know Australia Post uses VR technology for safety inductions and HR training. So you can get a room full of drivers, put the goggles on, all of a sudden they're at a facility, there's trip hazards, there's all sorts of things that you can do with that. So,
Well, we were saying as well, I mean, I've done the VR experience with the free roaming where you're in a warehouse and you're killing zombies.
shoot 'em up zombies one.
Shooting up zombies. It's you know, best 45 minutes of, you know, of my life. I know I've got 2 sons. Having them ball for us first. Then the killing the zombies. But yeah, no, you're right. I struggle to find, the other one I struggle to find a place for is augmented reality. Anyone here used AR in there? What was your use of AR?
Ours worked great. It was a team building exercise.
Right.
So we had, it's a little complicated, but we broke them up in teams and we sent them around the city and we had different tags.
Right. Okay.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. We related it back to their company's values.
Okay.
And so the thing was getting the group to take a really unique picture in front of the item.
Yeah.
And relate it back to their values, and then the best picture won.
See, I can see that from a one-off, but I can't. Yeah, that's very specific, isn't it? Very
But did you-
specific.
But with this particular technology, which is still needs there was a lot of bugs.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to build, and once you build it, there'll be multiple uses for it for that particular
Right.
client. So I can see that being something that'll be huge.
Okay.
Did you find people got really competitive and involved?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that's an example of interaction, people wanting to participate.
And it was both with what you're saying, the wow factor, but also the interactivity of it. So.
But I think that's an example of where the event design and the technology marry together really strongly. And so you've thought about what it is you're trying to achieve from the event. You're talking about the company's values, and you're finding a really interesting and engaging way of doing that. And so I think that's the challenge with every new technology, especially technology that's kind of doesn't readily fit into what you're doing. I think things like streaming and the apps straight away, the take up is huge for apps. I mean, and they're a terrific platform in any event. And so if the event is designed around, you know, engagement, the app's a great platform for it. Other technology, you've got to think harder and be more creative. And that comes down to the event design.
I think,
Okay.
sorry, just
Yeah,
to
go for it.
say one more. I think also to not forget simplicity, quality content, and give everyone Wi-Fi. Otherwise, they can't do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Give everyone free Wi-Fi, make it fast.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they can't participate in anything.
Yeah. Well, last 5 minutes, I'm
Yep.
going to ask you, I've got 3 more pieces of technology that I just want to throw out there, and if anyone's got any opinions or ideas around these, I'd love to hear them. But if you could give us your succinct comments and thoughts on these. So number 1, voice technology, voice activation, all those kind of things, the series of this world. Do you think there's a space for that?
Difficult to mobilise in the events industry.
Okay.
And I don't know that it's up to scratch just yet. I think it's great for sort of domestic use around the home. Turn the lights off, turn the lights on. I don't know how I'd mobilise it in the events industry.
I have a slightly different view. I think when I think about that stuff, like a lot of, once upon a time, broadcast and theatre used to be where the technology for events came from. Nowadays, consumer technology, people go, I can do this in my home, why can't I do this in the ballroom? And so the expectations are driven very heavily by consumer technology these days. So I look at that and go, people are going to go, I can turn on everything in my home, why can't I do that in this room? And so I think there's a kind of, where it'll get used, it'll get used in event spaces, like not so much in the event design, but in the spaces that are used for events. I think you're going to see voice activation and machine learning type technology will be big in there.
Anybody use voice activation in their events here? Okay, it's still an early stage for that one.
Yeah.
So the next thing was artificial intelligence, AI. Before it kills us all, we will be using it for, and if anyone wants to have a conversation about that, drinks later on, I'm very serious. It will kill us all. Anyway.
Terminator.
Is there a space for AI?
The short answer for me is yes. In a trade show environment, okay. I think there'll be a whole lot of, and again we're talking about opportunities for engagement here. The AI is just by design; it's an opportunity for engagement. If an AI can engage with people at a trade show you have the opportunity to harvest a whole lot of data there. And so I think you'll see that used quite a bit in the event industry, but it probably more in that than in a live event.
Yep.
Yep, data. That's what it'll be used for. The time you spend in a booth, things you like, things you post pictures of, can read the picture, send you a link to blah. Now all of a sudden you're a customer.
I mean, I think all of these things, the app, bots, AI, if they connect through to big data, then that's an enormously powerful tool for engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Last one is something that's coming this year. And I'm just interested about how you think it's going to change the industry, because we've mentioned Wi-Fi, but obviously the next big thing is 5G. I'm predicting that we'll all just pull the internet out of our house because, who's going to want a crappy old NBN when we've got 5G? How do you think that might affect the space?
To me, that's the same as 8K video. It's more of the same. It's a bit faster and a bit more broadband, but it's a channel. I think that's what we're talking about there.
Well, being a Gen Y person who consumes a lot of data, I would say, yeah, bring it. Yeah, we're going to watch videos. We're going to post stuff. We do everything online. Give me faster, more.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. We're going to be at drinks later on. We're going to be talking about two things. Number one, artificial intelligence killing us all. And the second thing is the Fire Festival documentary. Has anyone seen that on Netflix? Look, if you haven't and you're in the event industry, then shame on you. Because if there is ever a documentary about how not to run an event, it's the Fire Festival documentary.
Take a Valium before you watch it.
Yeah, I know.
It's a bit stressful.
I landed here on the plane and just went, I've never seen anything quite like that. It's amazing. But thank you very much for joining us. I'm back tomorrow to talk about digital marketing, and we'll all see you at drinks later on.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.